I'm Laura Trump, coming to you from my home in New York. The left will stop at nothing to defeat Donald Trump and destroy America. Yet on November 3rd, they'll be able to play the Trump card to save America. Joining me is the author of United States of Socialism and executive producer of the film Trump Card, our friend Dinesh D'Souza. Dinesh, always great to have you back. I'm so excited because the last time we met, you had just published United States of Socialism. Now you're about to release your new film, Trump Card. Everybody check this out.
Are we becoming the United States of Socialism? Who's behind it?
Our country should be more fearful of white man.
They control the black community, they control the black vote.
The president spoke tonight as if
they don't want to hear the truth, the media.
My hands are being put in handcuffs, my ankles are shacked.
A period of 18 months, I went through 23 different audits or investigations.
29 FBI agents with assault weapons.
Joe Biden offshored the corruption. He has become incredibly soft in his criticism of China.
Growth in China is overwhelmingly in our interest.
Who will stop them?
That America will never be a socialist country.
So Dinesh, why did you do the 1-2 punch with the book and the film? What was your thought here?
Well, I'm very excited about this film. I honestly think it's my best one yet. For most of my career, I was a writer publishing books, and I realized that books reach a good-sized audience, tens of thousands, maybe 100,000 people, but movies are different. They reach millions of people. And the difference between a book and a film is that a book is sort of an argument, but a film is an emotional narrative. It appeals to the head and the heart. And I think it's very important for our side because the left has these huge megaphones, and we need to find other ways to reach people. And movies are a very powerful way to do that, to kind of combat the left's narrative and supply a rival narrative. That's really what Trump Card does. It exposes the tactics of the socialist left and their ideas. It exposes Joe Biden. And then it presents Trump, not just in his role, by the way, as a political leader against socialism, but also as the classic entrepreneur, because for most of his career, Trump was the embodiment of American capitalism.
Yeah, well, what a powerful trailer. I mean, this movie, I can't wait to see. I think everyone in the country needs to watch this because it seems like you're really laying out what is truly on the line as we head towards November. What is at stake? Can't wait for it to come out, so you'll keep us tuned in to that. Now, we often hear, Dinesh, from the left that the two parties apparently switch sides and that the Republicans are now the party of racism. What's your thought on that?
This is the left engaging in its classic myth-making. Recently, Nancy Pelosi said that she wanted 15 Confederate statues to come down in the nation's capital, and 13 of those 15 are Democrats. So what this is pointing to is the simple fact that the Democrats historically were the party of slavery, of the plantation, of segregation. Every Jim Crow law in the American South was passed by Democratic legislatures and enforced by Democratic governors. The Democrats were also the party of the Ku Klux Klan, of lynching, of racial terrorism. So think of this horrific record that this party has, that, by the way, it's never acknowledged. But what the left tries to do is to take the history of the Democratic Party and somehow flip it or transmute it onto the Republicans. So how do you do that? Well, you come up with this sort of crazy idea that the two parties somehow switch sides. And the crux of the argument is that the racist Dixiecrats all became Republicans. That is the sort of foundation of this myth. But of course, it's very easy to check and see that this is frankly untrue. There were about 200 racist Dixiecrats, senators, congressmen, governors. And out of this group of 200, exactly two, one in the Senate, Strom Thurmond, one in the House, a guy named Watson, moved over to the Republican Party, but every other racist Dixiecrat stayed and lived and died in the Democratic Party. Many of them, like Robert Byrd, lionized to this day. So this whole notion that the party somehow switched and that the racist Dixiecrats became Republicans, this is just a classic lie from the left.
Yeah, well, we know that they're good at that, and we know that they basically do it on a daily, hourly, maybe minute-by-minute basis and sort of lie to the American people. Recently, the news media have deceptively reported, Dinesh, on peaceful protesters. We hear a lot about the peaceful protesters out there, but we can actually see rioters on the city streets causing destruction, causing chaos, violence. So what's the difference, or what's going on with this deceptive reporting?
Well, I guess you can either believe the media or you can believe your lying eyes, as they like to say, because you keep hearing this mantra, the peaceful protester, the peaceful protester, and then you see fires and looting and arson and people being beat up and blood in the street. So a protester is not the same as a rioter. If you think of a protester, we think back to the civil rights movement. You think about people marching. The idea of a protester is to make a verbal objection to something wrong in our society. And it's an appeal to conscience. It's an attempt to try to convince the American people, here's something that's going on that's very wrong, and we want you to be aware of it and to change your way of thinking about it. Now, this couldn't be further from the idea of a rioter, because a rioter is not trying to talk to anybody or argue with anybody. The only sounds that come out of the rioter's mouth are obscenities. And then you see all this beating and burning. So a riot is a kind of a failed revolution. A rioter is trying to use the language not of persuasion, but of force. And I think the way that the Democrats, they recognize how embarrassing and horrible this looks, and that nobody wants to live in a lawless society, which is why they try to camouflage the reality of the riots by pretending like these are all peaceful protests.
Well, we can see otherwise unless, as you say, we have lying eyes, which I don't think we all do in America. Now, in Trump Card, you go in depth about Joe Biden, but not about his cognitive decline, which I think is very apparent to anyone who has tuned in to any of his rather embarrassing press conferences and speeches, if you even call them that, or his embrace of the far left. You actually, Dinesh, focus on the Biden family corruption. Why did you choose to do that?
I think that corruption, it represents the sort of essence of Joe Biden's career. And he's been extremely cunning about it. One may almost say that he has offshored the corruption, and he's also made it a family racket. If you look at Joe Biden's own net worth over a period of time, most of his career, it actually hasn't gone up all that much. But if you look at the net worth of his family members, his brothers, James Biden, Frank Biden, his son Hunter Biden, their net worth has grown exponentially. And so in the movie, we go through this point by point, but you've got Frank Biden making deals. You've got James Biden making deals in Costa Rica and South America. You've got Hunter Biden going with Joe Biden to China. And what happens is Joe Biden goes in as the front man. Meanwhile, Hunter Biden is meeting with Chinese officials and making multi-million, in some cases billion-dollar deals, getting access to markets that the Chinese close off to other foreign investors. And then, of course, in the Ukraine, you've got the same thing. Hunter Biden, with no experience, magically gets appointed to the board of Burisma, this huge Ukraine energy company. He and his partner each paid $83,000 a month over a period of 5 years. So this is politics for these guys is big business. And this is not just Biden. We saw it with Hillary. We've seen it with Al Gore. These are guys who have gone from $0 to $100 million on a government salary.
Wow. Well, maybe it's part of the reason, Dinesh, that the Biden family is allowing Joe Biden when I think, again, it's very clear that there is a cognitive decline, that he really is not up to the task of being president of the United States. Maybe that's why they're continuing to push him out there and have this quest for him to become president. It's a family affair. It's part of their business model, and maybe they can't make it without that. Who knows? There's one thing that we know for sure, which is that this election on November 3rd is absolutely crucial for this country. And I'll say it again, everybody should watch this movie that you have coming out. I think it's very powerful. I think it's very telling. It's about time we started exposing some of these truths. But as we're looking towards November, there really is so much on the line. What's your message for people out there about how important this election is?
My message is very much in the film Trump Card. We had hoped to release this movie in the theater, but because of coronavirus, the theaters are opening in a kind of staged or spotty way. And so we can't open in the theater in a way that will allow people all across the country to see this film. And therefore, we've made the decision to release the film on video on demand. And this way, everyone can see it and you can see it at home. So we're hoping this way to widen the audience for the film, have millions of Americans see the film. I think you can't see this film without realizing how evil and how dangerous are the tactics of the socialist left, with Biden as their front man.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll look forward to that. Dinesh, as always, we enjoyed having you, and come back very soon.
Thank you.
How do we say play the Trump card on November 3rd? That's the real news for today. If you'd like to get involved with Team Trump, go to donaldjtrump.com or download the official Trump 2020 app from the App Store or the Google Play Store. I'm Laura Trump, coming to you from my home in New York. Thanks for joining us, everybody.